Hello! Welcome to the Turret of Pleasure here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm your host for today, the Lord Chamberlain of the Enchanted Kingdom, as it were, Zip Gun. We're going to do another episode of Where Not to Start. And a lot of these are, of course, where to starts, but we started this series with as a cautionary thing. And so we're trying to start with where not to start. Today's band, where you don't start with them, is Jethro Tull. Tull is a band I've kind of forgotten about. They exploded onto the rock music scene in 1970, and they went from strength to strength. Their only main member has been Ian Anderson. Their guitarist Martin Barr has been with them from the second album pretty much on, but I don't know if they talk. And I think it's turned into oldies, classic rock kind of thing. And they've made a lot of records. Lots and lots and lots of records. Most of which you needn't sully your consciousness with. There's a Tull sound. It's prog rock. It's a little bit airy-fairy. There's often a lot of flute, because Mr. Anderson is a flautist. Like all prog rockers, he kind of takes himself maybe a bit too seriously. I do know that up here in the archives, and where is it? I'm going to find it. You watch. It's right here. This thing. In fact, I might as well drag both of these. What is this? No. Yeah, where not to start? Well, I'll tell you, this is really where not to start. Don't start with this. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. What were this? This is a whole combination of things. What were they thinking? Conducted by David Palmer, who was in Jethro Tull, of course. Guest appearances of Ian Anderson, Natch. Martin Barr, fine. Dave Pegg, excellent bass player. Listen to him in Fairport Convention. This is not really where to hear him. They do some pretty good songs, but this is all profit-taking. This is absolutely... If you're a classical music person and the thought of rock and roll kind of scares you, maybe, God help you. I don't know if there's any hope for you. I found this in the thrift store. I can't listen to it. Basically, rules of thumb about Jethro Tull. Well, it's tough because, like so many long-lived major bands, they are essentially the work of one man. Ian Anderson is their kind of, what you will call it, titular head, conceptual pope, if you will. And they've gone through many different incarnations. The first one was a blues band with a guy named Mick Abrams on guitar. And they played basically British blues. And they were signed to the same management as 10 years after, played to the same crowds, played the same venues. And that lasted exactly one record. And then they had a bit of a schism, if you will. Guitar player said, I want to play more blues. Anderson was like, yeah, you know what, I think that's a dead end. And he also secretly knew that they weren't the best British blues band. So he figured maybe they should do other things. Mick Abrams disagreed. They split. He hired a guy named Martin Barr. Barr was quite shy. I don't think he played a lot. Wasn't really confident in his abilities, really. And so he was a lot more malleable for what Anderson wanted. And they did 2 more records with that lineup, the 4-piece. And then he fired the bassist Glenn Cornick, replaced him with, let me get this straight now, Jeffrey Hammond. Clive Bunker, the dynamic drummer who wowed everybody at the first incarnation, he went the way of the dodo after thick as a brick. Barrymore Barlow replaced him, and that was sort of the key. And then David Palmer joined on, or what's his name? Evan. They got a keyboardist. really, we're not to start. Okay, well, they were signed to and were basically the birthers of Chrysalis Records. Don't start with anything that isn't on Chrysalis Records. Okay, second of all, don't do anything that isn't. Well, God, where do you? Okay, I'm going to give up. Where do you start with these guys? Well, most people will tell you Aqualung. Aqualung was their biggest record, their biggest hit. It's a good record. I don't think it's their best record. And a lot of this is going to depend on what you're looking for in Jethro Tull. If you're looking for the kind of fey, English folk prog rock that they kind of were the purveyors of, Aqualung's not probably a bad place to start. But I came to them from 1970, and then they were a hard rock band. And the record that I love, and that I just found the big box set, and I'll do a review of that later. But the record Stand Up. This was their first record with Martin Barr. It was done very quickly. It's got riffage on it. It's just like Black Sabbath. It's got folky stuff on it, like Fairport Convention. There really isn't a bad song on this record. Vinyl collectors should know there's a pop-up in the cover when you open it up. Great place to start. Their album after this, Benefit, is another very good album. And Aqualung is when they added the keyboardist, changed the bass players. The sound became more refined, a little less rockin', a little less metal, if you will. And then he did Thick as a Brick, which was the concept record. And Anderson started to take himself a little bit more seriously, which he was, he had every right to, I suppose. He was doing very well. And they became they're an iconic classic rock band. And rightly so, a very hard work ethic. Anderson stayed away from all the excesses of rock and roll. There's a great book called Rock Gold that I bought 100 years ago that talks about his financial things, where he, for instance, he collects firearms, so he started a firearm collection company in England, and he managed to write all his firearm purchases off on his taxes. He's a very clever man. And I just noticed that the last Chrysalis record, which I haven't heard, features Dave Pegg and what's his name again? The guy, Doane Perry, who plays on Lou Reed's Blue Mask, of all things. And I'm like, how can this be a bad record? Well, the songwriting's no good. He went through a real spate of, like a real great period. 1970, 71, 72, 73. Really did a lot of great stuff. I would say stick to the mid-70s. Anything after 1980, don't start with anything after 1980. And don't start with This Was, the first album, because it's misleading. It's a blues album. And so if you want to start at the beginning, this is one of those things. Start at the beginning is a good way to go with these guys. It will get less heavy as you go down the line. This, by the way, is a great buy. It's cheap now. It comes with bonus tracks, which are a little bit weird. Living in the Past, which was recorded during this album sessions, and Driving Song, which is a great B-side. And then there's Sweet Dream with 17, which is actually a single that's more from the Benefit era, but ended up on this. Don't know why. But there you go. Yeah, so have fun. They're a good band. If you've never heard of them, if you don't know anything about them, they might well blow your mind. They sure blew mine in 1969 when I was 10 years old and their first record came out and I heard it. So I've been less impressed as they kind of suffered from the law of bigger isn't better, where the band got bigger, the songs got longer, the records got more ornate, and as a result they became slightly less interesting, I think. They weren't short and rocky the way they were in the beginning. So there you have it. We're not to start. Jethro Tull in the books. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'm going to do another thing on this elsewhere, and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll give you notifications if you want to see all of these, because hopefully they're fun for you, and it's a way I can keep in touch with lots of different people, and I hear from you in the comments. Thanks for those. Look after each other. Things are getting weird. And we'll talk at you soon. Take it easy.